The ultimatum. The Calvaxian Empire had ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years. Their fleets numbered in the tens of thousands, their territories spanned a quarter of known space, and their history was written in the ashes of 100 conquered civilizations. To the Calvaxians, dominion was not a matter of conquest, it was a matter of inevitability. Humanity, by contrast, was nothing. A collection of frontier colonies clinging to 27 star systems at the edge of nowhere. No ancient artifacts, no patron species, no seat at the Galactic Council. The humans had stumbled into faster-than-light travel barely 3 centuries ago, practically yesterday by galactic standards. When Overlord Kavresh of the 13th Calvaxian Fleet arrived at the edge of Terran space, he expected capitulation within the hour. He was wrong. Admiral Ko Yamada stood on the bridge of the Defiant, humanity's flagship, watching the Calvaxian armada materialize on the holographic display. 300 warships, dreadnoughts the size of cities, fighter wings that could blot out suns. Fleet Admiral, incoming transmission, her communications officer announced. On screen. Overlord Kavresh appeared, a towering figure wrapped in ceremonial armor, his crest glowing with bioluminescent authority. I am Overlord Kavresh, voice of the Eternal Throne. You will surrender your territories to the Calvaxian Empire. You will dismantle your military installations. You will submit to imperial governance. Refusal means extinction. Silence filled the bridge. Yamada stepped forward, her expression carved from stone. Overlord Kavresh, I am Admiral Ko Yamada, commander of the Terran Confederacy Defense Fleet. Your demand is denied. The Terran border is inviolable. Turn your fleet around or we will consider this an act of war. Kavresh's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. You have 47 vessels. We have 300. Your technology is primitive. Your history is measured in centuries, not millennia. What do you possibly believe you can accomplish? Yamada's eyes didn't waver. Everything we've prepared for. Kavresh's expression flickered, confusion, then contempt. You have 1 hour to reconsider. The transmission cut. Across the Terran fleet, crews moved with practiced efficiency. No panic, no hesitation. They had drilled for this moment 1,000 times. Every officer, every technician, every gunner knew their role down to the millisecond. Status report, Yamada ordered. All defense platforms online. Minefield activation confirmed. Stealth drones in position. EMP arrays charged and ready. Her XO, Commander Okafor, glanced up. We're green across the board, Admiral. And our civilians? Evacuated to secondary systems as planned. Defense shelters are sealed. Yamada nodded. Humanity had learned long ago that hope was not a strategy. While other species had grown complacent under the Pax Calvaxia, the Terran Confederacy had spent 2 centuries building something different. Not faster ships or bigger guns, but a doctrine of asymmetric warfare forged from humanity's oldest lessons. You don't fight an empire head-on. You make conquest too costly to sustain. 58 minutes later, the Calvaxian fleet began its advance. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never known defeat. Dreadnoughts formed the vanguard, shields shimmering with power enough to glass planets. Behind them, cruisers and destroyers spread in a perfect formation that had broken 100 alien navies. They're entering the outer marker, Okafor reported. Hold, Yamada said quietly. The Calvaxian fleet pressed forward, crossing into Terran-claimed space. Inner marker. Hold. Every eye on the bridge was locked on the display. The Calvaxian formation was perfect. Textbook, predictable. Kill, zone, execute protocol Jericho. What happened next would be studied in military academies for centuries. The space around the Calvaxian fleet erupted. Thousands of autonomous weapons platforms, hidden in asteroid fields, debris clouds, and false sensor ghosts activated simultaneously. Not missiles, not beam weapons, kinetic impactors. Tungsten rods accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, invisible until impact. The lead dreadnought's shields flared and collapsed in seconds. Hull breaches bloomed across its surface like flowers of fire. Before it could even transmit a distress signal, 3 more impactors punched through its reactor core. The ship broke apart in a silent, white-hot explosion. Then the minefield ignited. 40,000 shaped charge mines, each smaller than a human fist, each perfectly positioned, detonated in a synchronized wave. The Calvaxian cruisers tried to scatter, but there was nowhere to go. Shields overloaded, hulls fractured, ships collided with their own wreckage. And then came the EMP pulse. Every remaining Calvaxian vessel went dark. Shields dropped. Weapon systems failed. Even life support stuttered. In the darkness, Terran stealth drones, silent hunters that had been shadowing the fleet since it entered the system, deployed their payloads. Precision missiles, boarding torpedoes, electronic warfare packages that turned Calvaxian targeting computers against their own. Ships, 54 seconds, that's how long it took. 54 seconds to reduce 300 Calvaxian warships to wreckage. Overlord Kavresh survived. Barely. His flagship's emergency systems rebooted just in time for him to witness the carnage. Dozens of ships venting atmosphere. Hundreds of smaller craft spinning lifelessly into the void. His fleet, the 13th fleet undefeated in 4,000 years, shattered. Fall back, he roared. Full retreat! The survivors limped toward the jump point, harried every meter by Terran drones. They didn't stop until they were 3 systems away. Back on the Defiant, the bridge crew allowed themselves a single moment of relief. Damage report? Yamada asked. 2 platforms destroyed. 17 drones lost. No casualties. Yamada closed her eyes briefly. No casualties. They had prepared for thousands of dead, tens of thousands. Send a message to all Terran systems, she said. The border holds. We are not conquered. Okafor hesitated. Admiral, the Empire won't let this stand. They'll come back. In force, I know. Yamada turned to face her crew, her voice steady and certain. But they've learned something today. Humanity is not easy prey. We are not to be underestimated. She looked out at the debris field where human ingenuity had just rewritten the rules of galactic warfare. Let them come. We'll be ready. End of Part 1. Across the galaxy, news of humanity's victory spreads like wildfire. The Calvaxian Empire, humiliated and enraged, begins mobilizing its true strength. But humanity has already moved to the next phase of their plan, and the galaxy is about to learn that humans don't just fight to survive. They fight to win. The Calvaxian response, the Galactic Council chamber on Arcanus Prime, had stood for 23,000 years. Its crystalline walls had witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the negotiation of peace treaties that reshaped entire sectors, and the allocation of resources that sustained trillions of lives across hundreds of species. Today, it bore witness to something unprecedented. The Calvaxian Empire demanding an emergency session to address a defeat. Ambassador Takara of the Valurian Protectorate watched. Legate Vraxus enter the chamber with barely contained fury radiating from every movement. The Calvaxian commander's crest burned crimson, a biological display of aggression that made several nearby delegates instinctively step back. The humans, Vraxus began without preamble, his voice like grinding stone, have committed an act of war against the Calvaxian Empire. They destroyed the 13th Fleet, 300 vessels, 40,000 personnel, in less than 1 of their minutes. Murmurs rippled through the assembled delegates. The 13th Fleet had pacified the Karathi rebellion, broken the siege of Terminus Gate, and secured the Outer Rim for 5 millennia. Its destruction was unthinkable. Perhaps, Takara said carefully, the Empire should not have invaded sovereign Terran space without Council authorization. Vraxus's head snapped toward her. Sovereign? They are infants. 3 centuries of spaceflight. No ancient lineage. No technological marvels gifted by predecessor species. They should be grateful we offered subjugation instead of extermination. And yet, interjected Ambassador Quill of the Nested Collective, his feathers ruffling thoughtfully. They won. Decisively. Perhaps the Empire underestimated them. There was no battle. Vraxus slammed a clawed fist against the podium. They use traps. Hidden weapons. Cowards' tactics. They hide behind automated defenses like prey animals cowering in burrows. Takara's antennae twitched with what humans would recognize as amusement. The Calvaxian Empire has ruled for 50,000 years through overwhelming force. Perhaps you've simply forgotten what it's like to face an opponent who refuses to fight on your terms. Vraxus leaned forward, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. The Empire is mobilizing the 3rd, 7th, and 19th fleets. We will reduce their worlds to cinders. We will teach the galaxy what happens to those who defy the eternal throne. A punitive expedition of that magnitude, Takara noted, will destabilize 3 sectors. Trade routes will collapse. Refugee crises will... I do not care. Vraxis's words cut through the chamber like a blade. The humans will learn their place, or they will cease to exist. Terran Strategic Command, Luna Base. Admiral Yamada stared at the holographic tactical display, watching real-time intelligence updates flow in from deep space monitoring stations. 3 Calvaxian fleets, 900 warships. This wasn't a punitive raid. This was an extermination force. They're pulling assets from garrison duty across 6 sectors, Commander Okafor reported, standing beside her. The Empire is committed, Admiral. They want to make an example of us. Expected. Yamada zoomed in on the projected invasion routes. What's our timeline? 4 weeks until the first fleet arrives. 6 weeks until all 3 are in position. More than enough time. Yamada turned to the assembled officers of the Terran Defense Council. Gentlemen, ladies, Operation Hourglass is now active. Admiral Chen, status of our deep strike capabilities? Admiral Chen, commander of the Terran Special Operations Fleet, pulled up a secondary display. 16 stealth carriers deployed across Calvaxian supply lines, each loaded with autonomous hunter-killer drones and electronic warfare packages. We've also positioned relay stations for faster-than-light communication disruption. Good. Admiral Reeves, what about our wild card? Admiral Reeves, a grizzled veteran with more scars than decorations, grinned. The Trojan Horse Protocol is ready. We've seeded misinformation across a dozen Calvaxian intelligence networks. They think our main defensive position is at the Arcturus system, when in reality, we're fortifying the Kepler belt, layered defenses, mobile platforms, and enough firepower to make them bleed for every meter. Yamada nodded slowly. The Empire expects us to fight like them, fleets meeting fleets, capital ships trading broadsides. We're going to do what humans have always done best: adapt, improvise, and make them regret every decision that brought them to our doorstep. She looked at each officer in turn. We can't match their numbers. We can't match their firepower. But we don't need to. We just need to make this war too expensive, too bloody, and too humiliating for them to continue. And if we can't? Someone asked quietly. Yamada's expression hardened. Then we make sure they remember us. Every empire that came to Earth thinking conquest would be easy learned the same lesson. Ask the Mongols. Ask Napoleon. Ask Hitler. She gestured at the approaching fleets. Now it's the Calvaxians' turn. Calvaxian War Dreadnought Infinite Conquest Fleet Admiral Corvin stood on the command deck of his flagship, surveying the combined might of 3 Imperial fleets. 900 warships, 2 million combat personnel, enough firepower to crack planetary shields and reduce continents to molten glass. The humans had embarrassed Overlord Kavresh with tricks and traps. Corvin would not make the same mistake. Deploy sensor nets across all approach vectors, he commanded. I want nothing, no mine, no drone, no hidden platform, within 50,000 kilometers of our formation. Activate full spectrum scanning. If they've hidden weapons in the asteroid fields, burn the asteroid fields. If they've seeded the void with surprises, sterilize the void. Yes, Fleet Admiral. Corvin studied the tactical display. The humans' homeworld, Earth, was 4 systems away. Between here and there lay the Arcturus system, where Terran defensive positions had been detected. A predictable choke point. The humans would make their stand there, would throw everything they had at slowing the Empire's advance. It wouldn't matter. All ships. Advance formation. Epsilon 7. We will crush their defenses, occupy their colonies, and deliver the Empire's judgment. He paused, his crest glowing with anticipation. These humans believe cleverness can defeat strength. They will learn otherwise. The fleets began their advance, moving with the terrible inevitability of a tsunami. Terran Intelligence Station, Deep Space. They've crossed the 3rd marker, Lieutenant Zhao reported, watching the Calvaxian armada on long-range sensors. Moving exactly as predicted. Captain Singh leaned back in her chair, a slight smile playing at her lips. Toward Arcturus? Yes, ma'am. They're burning hard, full sensor sweeps, exactly as the psychological profile suggested. They think we're dug in there. Perfect. Singh activated her secure comm. Hourglass Control, this is Station 17. The fish have taken the bait. Confirm activation of Phase 2. A voice crackled back. Confirmed. Phase 2 is go. God help them when they realize their mistake. Singh looked at the tactical display, where the Calvaxian fleets were charging headlong toward an empty system. Behind them, unnoticed and undetected, 16 Terran stealth carriers had already begun their silent approach to Calvaxian logistics hubs. The Empire expected a defensive war. They would get something entirely different. Lieutenant, send the signal. Tell all units, the clock is ticking. Calvaxian Supply Depot, Tertius Station Quartermaster Velk oversaw the loading of antimatter warheads onto transport frigates, routine work that had become almost meditative over his 30 years of service. The depot was one of dozens supplying the invasion force fuel, munitions, replacement parts, everything needed to sustain a prolonged campaign. His terminal chimed. Odd. A resupply freighter requesting priority docking. Control, this is Velk. I don't have that freighter on my schedule. Updating now, Quartermaster. Command authorization highest priority. Velk frowned but authorized the docking sequence. The freighter settled into Bay 7, and automated cargo systems began. The explosion vaporized 3 ammunition storage facilities and crippled the station's reactor core. As secondary detonations rippled through the depot, similar reports flooded in from 11 other supply stations across the sector. The Terran stealth carriers had struck, and 900 Calvaxian warships, charging toward Arcturus with the fury of an empire, suddenly found their supply lines severed. The price of conquest, Fleet Admiral. Corvin watched the tactical display with growing unease as status reports flooded in from across the sector. Tertius Station destroyed, 70% casualties. Logistics Hub Gamma 9 offline. Antimatter reserves lost. Medical frigate Healing Dawn confirmed destroyed. No survivors. 12 supply depots. Gone. In less than an hour, the Terran humans had crippled the logistical backbone of the largest invasion force the Calvaxian Empire had assembled in 3 millennia. How? Corvin's voice was dangerously quiet. How did they penetrate our sensor nets? How did they reach installations behind our lines? His intelligence officer's crest had gone pale with stress. We're still analyzing, Fleet Admiral. Initial reports suggest stealth technology far beyond projected Terran capabilities. The attack vessels registered as civilian traffic, refugee ships, even our own supply freighters. Impossible. We have their technical specifications. Their fastest ships can barely... Fleet Admiral. His sensor chief interrupted, something that would normally mean immediate disciplinary action. We're detecting multiple hyperspace signatures behind us. Terran energy readings. Corvin's blood went cold. How many? 16 capital ship signatures. No. Wait, they're launching something. Thousands of small craft. Drones perhaps, or... The display lit up with red icons spreading like a viral infection across their rear positions. Evasive maneuvers. All ships combat alert. But the Terran drones weren't attacking the fleet. They were attacking everything else. Terran stealth carrier Phantom Commander Sarah Chen watched her tactical display with grim satisfaction as her drone wings deployed across the Calvaxian rear echelon. Not the warships, that would be suicide. Instead, her targets were far more valuable. Wing Alpha engaged the repair ships. Wing Beta, priority targets are the fuel tenders. Wing Gamma, I want those communication relays offline. Go loud, go hard, and get out before they can respond. The Calvaxian fleet was massive, powerful, and terrifying. It was also a logistical nightmare requiring constant resupply, repair, and communication, and humanity had just spent 3 weeks mapping every vulnerable point. Admiral Yamada sends her regards. Chen muttered, watching secondary explosions blossom across the enemy formation. Welcome to asymmetric warfare. Calvaxian War Dreadnought Infinite Conquest Fleet Admiral. Engineering reports we've lost 30% of our repair capacity. Communication with the 4th Squadron is sporadic at best. Sir, we're detecting weapons fire from within the convoy. Some of those refugee ships we picked up at Kelvar Station, they're Terran infiltration units. Corvin felt control slipping through his clawed fingers like sand. The humans hadn't tried to stop his fleet. They'd let him advance, let him commit, and then struck where he was weakest. What's our fuel status? A long damning pause. At current consumption, we have 6 days of combat operations. Less if we engage in high-intensity maneuvers. 6 days to conquer 27 star systems against an enemy that had been preparing for this exact scenario for 2 centuries. Options, Corvin demanded. We could withdraw, consolidate, and wait for new supply lines. No. The word was flat, final. We are the Calvaxian Empire. We do not retreat from primitives. All ships maximum burn. We take Arcturus Station now, secure it as a forward base, and requisition their supplies. Sir, intelligence suggests Arcturus may be. I am aware of the possibility of a trap. Corvin's crest flared crimson. But we have 900 warships. Even if they've fortified the system, we will overwhelm them through sheer force. That is what the Empire does. That is what the Empire has always done. The fleet surged forward toward Arcturus, toward what every tactical projection now suggested was the humans' main defensive line. Corvin didn't know he was racing headlong into empty space. Kepler Belt. Terran Defense. Perimeter Admiral Yamada floated in zero gravity aboard the Defiant, watching her tactical display with the patience of a chess master, 3 moves from checkmate. Calvaxian fleet has committed to Arcturus, Okafor reported. They're burning fuel at maximum rate. Our stealth carriers report the enemy is already rationing supplies. Good. How long until they realize Arcturus is a decoy? 12 hours minimum. By then they'll be critically low on fuel and 48 hours from any intact supply depot. Yamada nodded slowly. And our position? All defensive platforms operational. Kepler Belt fortifications at full readiness. Our fleet is positioned exactly where they won't expect us, between them and their home territory. The plan was audacious, borderline insane. Instead of defending humanity's colonies, Yamada had positioned the entire Terran defense fleet behind the Calvaxian advance. When Corvin realized Arcturus was empty, he'd have 2 choices. Push forward into defended Terran space with dwindling supplies, or turn back and fight through Yamada's prepared positions. Either way, he would bleed, ma'am, the communications officer interrupted. We're receiving a transmission. It's from the Galactic Council. Ambassador Takara wishes to speak with you directly. Yamada raised an eyebrow. Put her through! The Valurian ambassador appeared, her antennae quivering with what might have been approval. Admiral Yamada, I am contacting you against Council protocol to deliver unofficial information. I'm listening. The Council has been monitoring this conflict closely. Your tactics have been educational. Several member species are now questioning the Calvaxian Empire's presumed invincibility. Takara paused. There is sentiment that if you can achieve a decisive victory, not merely survival, but a clear defeat of this invasion force, the Council may be willing to recognize Terran sovereignty and offer formal mediation. And if we fail? Then the Empire will make an example of your species, and the Council will condemn your destruction while doing nothing to prevent it. Politics, Admiral. Cruel but honest, Yamada smiled thinly. Then I suppose we'd better win. Arcturus system. 48 hours later, Fleet Admiral Corvin stared at the empty void where intelligence had promised fortified defensive positions, minefields, and the bulk of the Terran fleet. There was nothing. Automated sensor buoys, decoy platforms emitting false signatures, and enough electronic warfare jamming to have hidden the truth until his fleet had burned half its remaining fuel, reaching this worthless, empty system. They tricked us, his tactical officer said unnecessarily. Where are they? Corvin's voice was barely controlled rage. Sensor net is... Admiral, we're detecting Terran fleet signatures behind us. Between our position and Calvaxian space. The tactical display updated, and Corvin felt something he hadn't experienced in 4 decades of military service. Genuine fear. The humans hadn't tried to defend their territory. They'd positioned themselves to cut off his retreat. We still outnumber them 4-1, Corvin said, forcing confidence into his voice. We turn back, we engage, and we crush them. Ready all ships for combat. Sir, our fuel reserves... I am aware of our fuel situation. Corvin slammed his fist against the console. We have enough for 1 major engagement. So we make it count. All ships about face. We're going home, and we're going through anyone foolish enough to stand in our way. Kepler Belt. Final stand. They're coming, Okafor reported. 900 ships, full combat formation. They look angry. Yamada allowed herself a slight smile. They should be. We've made them look like fools in front of the entire galaxy. Now comes the hard part. She activated fleet-wide communications. All Terran forces, this is Admiral Yamada. What we do in the next few hours will determine the future of humanity. Not just our survival, but our place among the stars. The Empire thought we were easy prey. Let's teach them why Earth has never been conquered. All ships execute Operation Thermopylae. Hold the line. The Terran fleet, 47 warships against 900, moved into position, but these weren't open space coordinates. The Kepler belt was a debris field of asteroids, ice, and fragments of failed planetary formation. Perfect terrain for ambush warfare, and humanity had spent months turning it into a three-dimensional kill zone. The Calvaxian fleet entered the belt at full speed, confident in their numerical superiority. They didn't see the weapons platforms disguised as asteroids. They didn't detect the drone swarms hiding in the radar shadow of ice giants. They didn't anticipate the coordinated electromagnetic pulse that would disable their targeting systems at the critical moment. And they certainly didn't expect the Terran warships to fight like cornered animals, using the terrain, sacrificing drones and automated systems to draw fire, and targeting not the Calvaxian warship's armor, but their already depleted fuel reserves. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Calvaxian invasion force was shattered. 200 ships destroyed outright, 400 crippled or stranded without fuel. The survivors limped away in disarray, their once perfect formations broken, their invincibility shattered. The Terran Confederacy had lost 19 warships and over 4,000 personnel, but they had won. Epilogue. 3 months later, Ambassador Co. Yamada, recently promoted after her military retirement, stood in the Galactic Council chamber wearing formal Terran diplomatic attire. Around her, representatives of 200 species watched with expressions ranging from respect to fear. The Calvaxian seat was notably empty. The Terran Confederacy, she began, seeks formal recognition as a sovereign power. We seek trade agreements, diplomatic relations, and mutual defense pacts with any species willing to treat us as equals. Ambassador Tikara rose, her antennae raised in formal acknowledgement. The Valurian Protectorate seconds this motion. Humanity has proven they are not prey, they are survivors, innovators, and perhaps exactly the kind of ally the galaxy needs. One by one, other delegates added their voices. Not all. The Calvaxian Empire's client states remained silent and several older powers abstained. But enough voted yes. Humanity had a seat at the table. As Yamada left the chamber, Okafor, now Captain Okafor, fell into step beside her. Think they'll try again? The Calvaxians? Yamada looked out at the starfield beyond the crystalline walls. Probably, but not soon, and not against us alone. We've changed the calculation. Other species now know the Empire can be beaten, she smiled. We didn't just defend our borders, Captain. We broke the myth of Calvaxian invincibility, and started a hell of a lot of trouble for ourselves in the process. That's humanity for you. Yamada's smile widened. We're very good at trouble. Behind them in the council chamber, the galaxy's power structure was already beginning to shift. Some species saw opportunity, others saw danger, but all of them saw humanity differently now, not as primitives to be subjugated, but as a force to be reckoned with.